summer. So there's a lot of time to do things in general. So we're going to talk about basically best ways to, what we're going to say, like maximize your summer and your time. So just to start off, my name is Chris Reynolds. The External Vice President for SGT. So SGT and NIAA are sponsoring this event tonight. And then I'm going to let the panel actually go ahead and introduce themselves.
All right, great. So good evening. Thanks for coming out. Thanks to Chris Reynolds and NIAA and SGT for really putting this together. This is a great opportunity for you all and for those of you watching at home to really get an understanding if you're going to have an internship or if you're going to, best utilize your summer. So my name is Neil Salgar. I'm a grad student here at Michigan, Master's in Aerospace Engineering. So this past summer, I interned at Boeing up in Everett, Washington, Environmental Control Systems, worked in the Ice and Rain Protection Group. So I've got a bunch of experience here at Michigan. I was on the solar car team, held multiple positions during my tenure at SGT. So I'm really looking forward today to sharing some of those experiences and helping you guys out.
My name's Mike Stengel. I graduated with a bachelor's in the aerospace program in December 2013. So I've been out of school for just over a year and a half now. And I currently work at a consulting firm in Ann Arbor called ICF International. It's a consulting firm that specializes just in aviation aerospace markets. If you're familiar with consulting at all, you might be familiar with Bain, Boston Consulting Group, and those big names, and they're more generalists. So we're a specialty or boutique firm. I had a 6-month internship at United Airlines in San Francisco, and that's it.
My name's Janice Gong. I graduated here last year in May, so I've been out for like a year now. I work at Ford Motor Company right now. I was an officer for AIAA, and I helped run NASA, the rocket team, back when I was here. I had 2 internships at Forcia, which is an automotive supplier. They do injection molding parts like instrument panels and center consoles and door panels and things like that. I worked in production control and logistics and purchasing, so some things that are kind of different from engineering, but give me a good perspective on manufacturing and things like that. Right now I work as an air handling subsystems engineer at Ford, so I work in climate control and I help them to do their testing for all the ducts and registers and things that they put in the car.
Cool. Hi, Berlina. I'm a junior in aerospace engineering. I have involvement with SES, AIAA, SGT. I'm pretty much ever in the department, but the reason I'm here today is talk a little bit about research. Last year, I spent my summer at Caltech. I'm also a scientific collaborator for the Curiosity mission, the rover that is on Mars. And partially my research at Caltech was related to that. And I also have interests related to aerosols and how the drought in California is related to that and climate changes, and also a little project in a vacuum chamber that replicates Mars. And thank you for coming. The weather outside is pretty extreme. And yeah.
So as you can see, we have a pretty wide variety of folks up here on the stage. You have myself, and you have Neil, who's a grad student right now. He's interning right now. You have Mike, who's consulting side of industry. Janice is in industry right now, and Callie's more representing the research side of things. I really want this to be an open conversation, so don't wait till the end to ask questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and I'll try to pick on you as soon as possible. Sound good? Okay, so we're just gonna start out with actually the side of maybe not having an internship, and maybe say you have to go home for the summer and not do, aerospace internship, something like that. Have you ever had any experience where like you didn't get an internship your first summer? I know it's kind of it's really tough to get an internship after your freshman year. So you had that experience. How did you handle that? And looking back, what would you change?
So I guess I'll talk a little bit about that. And if you don't have an internship right now, let me tell you, I was in that exact same position 1 year ago. I actually didn't even get my interview with Boeing until May 30th. So a full month until, since school ended. So I really didn't know what was going to happen. I was looking at staying involved, maybe student project teams, working from back at home, or just trying to get a local job. The number one thing is be productive, do something. Try to help out if you're part of a student project team. If you're not on a student project team, see if you can reach out, see if you can find a project team that needs help. There are plenty of great organizations on campus where you can get valuable research and valuable hands-on experience. Another thing, keep updating your resume, keep updating your cover letters, and most importantly, keep applying. There is no hard deadline for applications in terms of when they stop reading them. So you know, a lot of people think hiring happens early in September in the fall, and then maybe January, February, and then that's it. They're done. If they didn't get anything then, they're not going to have anything. And let me tell you, that's completely untrue, just based on my personal experience last summer.
So I got my first internship after my sophomore year, and I didn't really stop working since then. But the summer after my freshman year, I had to go home, and I didn't have an internship or anything. So actually I caddied for that summer, which, by the way, is a great summer job. Money's all under the table. It's not taxed, and you get very good tips. So it's a good time to save up money, help just save up money for spending during this school year, or help pay for college. I think one thing a lot of students don't think about is just because you don't have an internship doesn't mean that your network isn't expanding. I'm sure you guys have friends. If you don't have an internship, you have friends that do have internships, and that's the time to reach out to them and ask them, hey, how's your job going? And ask them about it. Like, what's your day-to-day kind of tasks, and learn if it's a good opportunity for you. And that way you're better prepared for the fall. You can go to that recruiter more confident and knowledgeable about the position. So utilize your network, even though you may be sitting at home. One thing I discovered is that just LinkedIn, you don't even have to know the person, you can have a mutual connection and ask your friend to put you in touch with that mutual connection. And then you can learn more about different opportunities.
So the summer after freshman year, I didn't have an internship, so I was at home. I worked at a banquet hall with a couple of my best friends at the time, and it was a blast because it's an easy job, and we just goofed off the whole time. So it was a good time to just relax and de-stress from the first semesters of college and stuff like that. Era was hard, so enjoy the time off that you can get. I know that during junior year, the summer of that internship, I took the last month off, mainly because the project that I was working on was kind of ending, and I wanted to kind of travel and stuff like that. So I went to California actually and visited Lockheed Martin Skunk Works and SpaceX. The summer, if you don't have anything to do, that's a great time to go and travel. So you can just travel on your own. I know a bunch of my friends just went abroad. They didn't study or anything. They just went and traveled, and they loved it. Or you can just go and visit companies like I did, which is also a great networking experience, and just kind of get a feel for what those companies are like, and just, I don't know, enjoy the summer if you've got it.
There are two ways to go across this, and the first one is, did you apply? And if you didn't succeed, why you didn't succeed? So it's the time to put together, look your resume and think, what I'm missing, how I can improve, or where can I improve. The second side is you didn't do anything. You didn't apply. You didn't try to get the opportunity. And that's where you need to work on how to develop this networking. So again, summer is a great time to, of course, rest. Take at least a month off. Put your head in somewhere else besides school. That will help you a lot. But it's also a great time to focus and try to find your passions. It's the only time you have to actually read a book. I don't have time to read books during my semester. I don't know about you guys. And the summer, I have just a stack of them, and I try to read all of them. And that's the time you have to find your passions and the things you're interested about. When you do that, it'll make it much easier to seek out people to work and do whatever you want to do. And the last advice, go talk to people. Most of the jobs is not only applying online, but also go talk to people, send emails, send your resume, put it out there. Don't be scared. It's just an email. If the person ignores, well, you try.
Any questions about that? There's just two things I'd like to reiterate. Just the fact that it's really tempting to go home, especially after your freshman year or sophomore year, and just kind of go back to your family and your friends back home and sort of do nothing. Because I mean, the school year is crazy intense. You're up all hours of the night doing work. It's just really tempting to go home and take the whole summer off. But like Howie said, definitely take some time to rest and kind of recuperate. I would really recommend, and I didn't really hear it up here, but the time for reflection. Reflect on what you did in the year. Howie sort of mentioned it. What worked for you? What did you enjoy? What did you not enjoy? One person always said that think about the things that drain you, things that energize you. So the things that energize you during the school year, make sure you kind of focus on them for the next year. Things that drain you, you kind of avoid them for next year and stuff like that. And then definitely keep talking to people. You know, your SGT external vice president or your AIAA president, anybody, they're always open to talking to you and pointing you in the right direction. There's a lot of contacts that AIAA has and SGT has. It only takes one email to any of the officers to get you in contact with almost anyone at any company. So just keep that in mind. You know, take your 2 weeks to rest, but then kind of get back up on your computer, send out some emails. One thing I really found helpful that someone showed me is on LinkedIn, you can do like a really, really refined search for people in your industry, in your area. So say you're from Florida or something like that, and you're stuck home in the summer just doing a lifeguard job, something like that. And that's fine. You know, you can take a leadership position there, maybe be like head lifeguard. But you can actually go on LinkedIn and search for people who are connected in the aerospace industry within your hometown. And I've heard of students before, the summer after their freshman year, they would just send messages to these people. Maybe they worked at SpaceX in Florida or something like that. And they would just meet up with them for breakfast or lunch or something like that and just talk. So now there's a contact there. You kind of showed your passion, and you can just ask questions and see how you can better prepare yourself for the fall career fair. So that's just one advice that I heard from someone that I thought was really, really good.
Another thing to keep in mind is academia is a little bit more flexible regarding hiring students for the summer. So if you're in a position right now that you want to work, but you don't know where, many professors now, department, ASS, and of course all the other projects, even though what's the name, is it Short? Yeah, Short is over. They have funding to hire you, and you can definitely reach them out and say, hey, I want to work with you, and they will be willing to host you for the summer. So keep that in mind. You can always stay in Ann Arbor and do something pretty awesome and make something out of yourself.
Yeah, and even if you're not in Ann Arbor, you know, go somewhere else to another university.
Exactly.
You know, you're an aerospace engineer, but maybe a university near you doesn't have aerospace engineering. You can still do some type of research there, maybe mechanical engineering, or just anything in general. Just to kind of throw in your resume.
Yeah, last year I got an offer from Cornell just by sending an email to the professor. It was like, yeah, sure, come over for the summer. Like, okay. So yeah, talk to people. That's the thing.
Passion really goes a far way. So if you show someone you're passionate, from what I've heard from experience too, is that really goes a far way in getting you at least an opportunity. It may not be paid, it might just be part-time, but it's an opportunity, it's something for you to get experience. So. Any questions so far? Okay.
You got one right here.
Oh, I was just going to comment on that with, because after my freshman year, I worked for Professor Atkins, and yeah, it's really valuable even just staying here and getting in touch with a professor, because that's like a really great source of connections, because they usually know a lot of people in the industry and they can help you out down the road. So yeah, there's like a lot of weight behind going that route.
Yeah, if you can afford to like stay here in the summer, first off, I recommend it because Ann Arbor is beautiful in the summer. It's not like it is right now, I promise. And student project design teams and research labs would absolutely love to have you in their office. Maybe they can't pay for anything, but like I said, it's the experience that you get that will help you in the long run. A lot of engineering internships are paid, obviously, that's no secret, but a lot of LS&A internships are not paid. So a lot of the people in the college down there at Central Campus, unfortunately, they have to go through a lot of struggle. You go through unpaid internships in order to get to the final goal when they graduate to finally get paid. So think of it like that. Think of it as you're investing your time now, possibly staying here in Ann Arbor and not really getting paid. So maybe the next summer you're getting a paid opportunity or something like that.
Yeah, before moving, professors in the School of Engineering, they have funding. So you don't go say I will work for free because they'll say yes. So go say I want money, and they will have money for that. But if that doesn't work, then you say I can volunteer. Worst case scenario. But don't go say I work for free. Never.
Yeah, worst case scenario, it's an investment of your time.
Exactly.
In your future.
But worst case scenario.
Any questions before we move on to the next? Okay. So for right now, let's transition. Since it's about 8:30 right now, let's transition to the fact that, okay, say you have an internship or a research position in the summer. How do you best utilize that position? So in my experience, I worked at GE, General Electric Aviation, for a summer, for 2 summers. And some interns really excelled, some interns didn't excel and didn't get return offers. So what is your best advice, kind of looking back on your experience on how to really stand out and then get the most out of your internship experience or research?
Absolutely. You want to come in every single day with that drive to succeed. Come in every day, 110% ready to go. So this summer, I had my offer at Boeing, so I accepted that offer. So since I was already in the Seattle area at the time, because my family lives in the Seattle area, I wasn't offered relocation. So I ended up driving from home, and that was a 70-mile commute one way. So I spent 140 miles each day, round trip, to commute up to work. So I wake up at around 3:50, get to work at around 7, and then leave work at 3:30, get home at around 6:37. So doing that, imagine that for 15 weeks, 12 to 15 weeks, right? That's a lot of time. I spent more time driving than I spent sleeping. Drove more than 7,000 miles. It's easy at that time, to come to work and be like, all right, I already have my internship at Boeing. Maybe if I just, do the bare minimum, I just, do what's asked of me, then I'll get the return offer and I'll come back for another one or for a full-time position. But don't ever think of it that way. Think of it as every single day you're there, it's a different opportunity, a new opportunity to prove yourself. Don't ever take anything for granted. Show up, make sure your manager knows that you're looking for work. They'll start by assigning you, small tasks, small projects. Get those done quickly. Don't delay. If you have time, to work, and if you're not, so let's say you've got a lunch break. If you're not hungry, work. Do whatever you can to work. And I'm telling you, seize every single opportunity, because management will notice, executives will notice, and that'll trickle down. They'll know. And when you come back at the end of the internship for your performance review and for your return offer, they'll definitely, reward you in that aspect. So seize every single opportunity.
Yeah. Along those lines, once you start an internship, you're probably not going to get a really big, juicy task, right? Like you said, you're probably going to get dealt a small project. But that first week is kind of like almost like a syllabus week. There's not much going on, so if it kind of depends what environment you're in. But if you're in like a manufacturing setting or like a shop floor, something I did at United was my first week, I spent most of my time in the hangars just talking to technicians and learning as much as I could about what they're doing and what kind of challenges they face, and just soaking everything in. And if I wasn't on the shop floor, I was back at my desk just reading up as much as I could about the business, about repair processes, that kind of thing. So you just have to be a sponge and take everything in around you. And it can be overwhelming, but it'll pay off in the long run. And also just because you have an internship, don't have the 9-to-5 mindset. This is the point in your career where you want to work the hardest and you need to make the best impression. So again, like Anil said, don't be afraid to tell your boss, like, hey, challenge me. I'm looking to get the most out of the summer. Now, you only have 4 months, so you want to do as much as you can. So you have to really go in with that attitude, that slightly aggressive attitude.
I think I would say just try to learn as much as you can. So for me, it was a little different because I didn't do engineering internships. I had 2 internships that were completely different from engineering. Production control and logistics is basically supply chain management, and purchasing is purchasing. But I learned a lot about how a company works, which is really beneficial if you want to get into systems engineering. It's beneficial to learn about every aspect of what your company does and all the different kinds of projects that go on and how to help your company succeed. So a lot of projects that weren't really assigned to me, I just kind of took on because I noticed something, or cost saving things. Companies love that. If you notice something that could be done better, definitely tell them, because if you're mentioning things that they haven't thought of yet, that's really great on your behalf, and they'll definitely thank you for that in the long run. And like I said, travel, if you're doing an internship somewhere else, definitely go see what's out there. So if you're out in California, go surfing or go to the beach or go see some mountains or something. Always look for opportunities to just do things that you normally wouldn't have the opportunity to do and make the most of your time there.
Yeah. So for a research position, or maybe for a JPL, which is more like a research-based position, your main goal, and even though you're not pursuing academia or graduate studies, is to get a publication at the end of your summer. Don't go never below that. Make it clear for your advisor that you want a publication at the end of your summer. That's the very first thing, because in academia and research, it takes a lot of time and knowledge and many papers to be read in order you start participating and giving your opinion and outputs. So I remember my freshman year, first research position was with Professor Randall right across the street. The very first month was me reading papers and papers about water vapor pressure, trying to understand how all the model came together, and to actually catch up with what they were doing in the lab for the last 6 years. So you do that, and that's the time that you can't have the mindset of 9 to 5. It's going to take more than 9 to 5. And if you're passionate about your position, or passionate about your work, that shouldn't matter. So make sure if you got a project or a research position, you're working on something that is extremely cool and excites you to keep going and keep moving forward. And in the same lines, ask your advisor to challenge you. That's it, the idea in the industry and in academia is the same, because professors and your boss, they'll most likely be super busy, and they're not going to stop and say, what college should you do? Let me think. I'm going to spend 30 minutes trying to elaborate a project. No, it's going to take 2 seconds. I'm going to say, do that. And it's up to you to come back and say, hey, that's not challenging enough. I want something that actually challenges me and make me think. And that's where over the summer I started working on that, and I got this super interesting idea. And at some point I got invited to be part of the Curiosity team. And that was just a jump to get into Caltech next year, because, well, Cal is a scientific collaborator for Curiosity, and that helps you. So make sure you ask to be challenged. If you're not asking to be challenged, and no one's gonna come and say, I'm gonna give him a challenge. That's pretty much the idea usually. And always go for a publication. That's what matters in academia.
Okay, I got a pro tip real quickly. So if you're at an internship or whatever, you're working and stuff like that, try to go and eat lunch with someone different, like, every day. It's like everyone eats lunch, like, you gotta eat it somewhere, whether it's all right. Well, like, if they're busy or something, you can try a different day or whatever, but it's like a general time where people just take a break. You can go eat at their desk, you can go out. It's like a very just casual thing to just go and just talk to somebody in your industry. It's really great for networking, like, so they'll remember your name and stuff like that, and they can be references in the future and stuff like that. So that's a really good thing to do.
Definitely, that's a really good point. I learned that. I didn't know until the end of my first internship, and I definitely regretted it. So there's a lot of people in my company that I could have met who actually invited me out to lunch sometimes. I packed my own lunch. I said, no, I'm not gonna go out. And I sat at my desk and ate my lunch, and then by the end of the summer I realized, like, oh crap,
And they will always pay for you. So.
Yeah. Most cases.
Most cases. If the guy's superior, he will.
Yeah. So that's also good. But I mean, these are really, really great points. Definitely things that I didn't learn until at the end of my summer, my first internship. I don't know if you guys can attest to that too. None of these points here I knew until 10 weeks in, and I'm kind of hitting myself in the head, how much I could have gained from knowing these things.
Got one more thing on that same note. Call people and email people within your company. So be very, very proactive with this. Literally, you can just go up into the directory, find an organization chart, and just look down names, look at managers or people that you might want to talk to that are doing cool things that you possibly might want to do next semester based on what they say. Talk to your coworkers. Some of them come from different companies. I had a coworker, my lead engineer actually, he worked for Boeing on the space shuttle for 15-something years, Boeing Rockwell. And then so his friend, his coworker, actually left Boeing, went out to SpaceX. So I had the opportunity to talk to him, get an idea of how SpaceX works and how SpaceX does cool things and unique things and how they're different from Boeing. So take into account, so many people work at this company, and as an intern, you pretty much have a free pass to go up to them and say, hey, how are you doing? What are some cool things about things you're doing right now? What have you done in the past? How can you help me find the place that's right for me? I think that's really important. A lot of interns at Boeing don't do this. A lot of interns, I think, in general, just are too shy just because they think, oh, I'm an intern. I don't really have a place in this giant company with management and executives. However, as an intern, you have a free pass. You can do nothing wrong unless you break something, or even when you break something, if you report it, it should be okay. But as an intern, take advantage of that because people will be literally falling down to help you. They really want to give you an idea of what goes on in the company. And most of these big companies, when you get hired in, their intention is to bring you back. So when you work hard, you will most likely be brought back for another internship or full-time.
2 things, and one is the life advice. Respond to emails pretty fast. That's a life hack.
1 minute.
Exactly. Respond fast. People will see that you're active and you're willing to. People that take a day to respond to an email, usually it's a bad sign. So fix that. Second thing, don't be afraid of a change. I'm telling this because that's actually pretty interesting. So last summer at Caltech, they gave me housing at Caltech to actually live, and my very first week there, I didn't know anyone. Right, it was me and most of them are Caltech students because most of them spend their summer doing research at Caltech or JPL, and I didn't know none of them. I was in my room, and you're back to your freshman year when you have to keep your door open to get to know people, and I was like, what did I do? I was in a perfect house in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I could be working in curiosity papers, and I'm here. And then the second week, I was just hanging out with everyone. It was the greatest time of my life. So don't be scared of this change. It will be weird in the beginning. It will get better. So keep focused. Know why you're there, and that will make things better. And respond to emails pretty quickly.
That's actually like a really good point.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about. Yeah. So one time somebody told me like it was like a panel sort of like this, and they said if you don't remember anything during your panel, just remember one thing. That's like to ask the vice president or like senior professor or wherever you're like at to lunch. Like you will never regret it. Like you might be nervous as heck going into it, and you might like hate your life for sending an email and asking them to go, but like after the fact, it's gonna be like one of the best things you do. You'll have that contact. And like I've heard like vice presidents say before, like when they get an email from an intern asking to go to lunch, they're like ecstatically excited because like that means that someone's in their company or in their like research lab is really passionate about that company. That's what they love to see. They love to see their employees and the research assistants get passionate. So that's just one thing that I really, really recommend. It takes a lot of guts, but I assure you that it'll be worth it.
One comment on that, I actually have sorry.
Nope.
I have a quick story about my boss actually. So most of the guys I work with in my office went to Michigan, did aerospace engineering, and so my one boss, if you know him, his name is Kevin Michaels. He's come back here to do a couple of talks, and he actually graduated in the same class from with Paul Adams, who's currently the president of Pratt & Whitney, and they knew each other after undergrad, and after they got out, I think they might have been both at Williams. I know Kevin was for sure, but they had this bet that they placed a bet when they were like in their 20s and see who would be further along up the chain 20 years like down the road when they were both in their 40s. And so, Kevin ended up doing his own thing. He went into consulting and worked really hard and eventually founded his own firm, which is now ICF, got purchased by ICF. And then Paul became the president of Pratt & Whitney. And then they both, saw each other pretty frequently, like in the time between, but just recently they met again and they were like, how do we both get to these positions? Like Paul is the president of a major corporation and Kevin's doing very well too, but on a lower or smaller scale. And Paul said that his trick was like, I just took all my bosses out to lunch and paid for it. And then that's
the only time you'll pay you.
Yeah. Take your bosses out to lunch, get to know what they do, they'll love to talk about like their careers and their histories, and it's great networking.
Was there a question before, Mike?
Joey, do you have a question?
Yes, I did. It's actually for you, Kyle. So you've been talking about, the research side and the academia side, and my main question is that something you knew you wanted to go into when you came in as an undergraduate?
Yeah, it's something I knew, and most people that they're doing research during the summer, they don't actually know they want to do academia or industry. Most likely they didn't get internships, so they do research. So I knew I wanted to stay in academia. I wanted to be either professor or research scientist somewhere. But yeah, it makes things easier because I know where I want to be and I know what it takes to get there. So that's why I say publication. And yeah, if you're doing projects, if you're doing research, it makes sense to even though you're not planning to do graduate studies, try to do what most people in this career would do. Yeah.
Now, did you know what type of project you'd be interested in? Like, how did you search for your first, your project?
That's a good question. So it actually comes back when I was 15. I wanted to be an airplane pilot, then I realized that I wanted to build airplanes, and then I realized I wanted to do CFD. And when I got into the University of Michigan, I wanted to do pre-med and aerospace engineering and work for NASA and do biology stuff in space and the ISS, this kind of stuff. But then I realized, no, I want to do CFD, and then I came back to CFD. And then my very first summer, it was, I'm not gonna lie, it was random. Because I was working with S2FL in this project that had just started, microscopes on Mars. And Professor Randall would barely show up in the project. And one day he showed up and he invited me to come to his place and have dinner with him and his family. And he invited the entire lab. And I was the only student from the project that was invited. And that was actually the point that we talked, and I said, oh, we'll be fine if I come back for this. And I was like, yes. And his project was really interesting. He had this idea when Phoenix, which was a mission that landed on the North Pole of Mars, scooped a little bit of the sand on Mars, basically saw liquid brines, which can give grounds for water on Mars. But yeah, and it was really interesting. When he told me, I was like, that's really interesting. I want to do that. And that's how it started. But I also had a point last summer before going to Caltech. I worked with Gamba for a month, and I realized that I didn't want to do aerospace at all. I wanted to do planetary science. So I kind of knew, but I changed my mind. Be open for projects. Research is great because of that. You can do multiple projects. You can go to different locations, and that's awesome. You can try stuff.
I think that brings up a really good point, though, because whether it's research or you have an internship or whatever you're doing, if you find out what you're doing, you hate it. So my second summer at GE Aviation, I was working on electric generators for the F-18. It's literally just an electric generator that sits and powers the F-18. It's run off the engine, basically, the jet engine. And I hated it, absolutely hated it. Didn't even want to touch the thing anymore. And I could have been really upset, and I was really upset, by the third week in, that I was going to spend another 10 weeks here. But you have to think of it as okay, now I found something I don't want to do. So you really don't want to be too negative on it. So Howie, the best thing you can do is to do something. And then if you find out that's not what you want to do, then you narrow the list down, basically. So think of it like that. Always be open for new experiences. By the end of the summer, I actually found something on the project that I really liked and enjoyed. Some of the more mechanical aspects of the generator. So if you kind of stay positive about things, it's always finding something that I don't want to do, which.
Yeah. So there are 2 points here. So the first one, if you right in the beginning of your internship or your research, you realize the project's horrible. There are 2 ways to go across. Either you go talk to a supervisor or professor and you tell them, or whatever is responsible for research. You tell, I'm not happy. What can we do about it? If there's no way, look at the big picture. Look what your project will help society. I'm pretty sure in industry it's pretty easy to look at the big picture. In academia, sometimes it can be pretty tricky because you guys can just look, oh, it's an A350, it's a 737, might as well. In academia, it's oh, we're gonna help that pretty specific thing in the right side of Mars and that mountain that no one cares about. So try to first tell your advisor that thing doesn't fit you, and if it's not possible to change, look at the big picture. The big picture will help. But yeah, what Chris said is, if you spend a summer and didn't like it, it was well spent. You're not gonna do that for the rest of your life, and it's great that you learned that before actually getting that full-time job.
Yeah, a couple things on that. Or is one question?
No, finish it.
No, yeah, I was gonna say that. So I started off in the ice rain protection group. That was my home group. I had an assigned manager for that. So pretty much they do everything from just simple wiper blades on all the Boeing aircraft to analysis when ice forms on the aircraft, how the aerodynamics change on the aircraft. So that was a very interesting and very unique topic. But I also took it upon myself to find other managers within other groups to do different work. I went from that to high pressure and low pressure systems, looking at air conditioning and AC packs and how things work in the other parts of environmental control systems. Moved on to ground testing of aircraft and delivery aircraft. I was on the ground testing crew for the first 747-8 for Air China. So that was a really great experience. On top of that, towards the last 2 or 3 weeks of my internship, I worked with a technical fellow at Boeing on sand and dust. It's a very, very unique and niche topic, but that was great. Worked on 777X and 737 MAX. So look for other opportunities while you're still there. Just because you're in a specific group doesn't mean that's the only thing you're going to work on. There's so many more things at these big companies, and even at smaller companies. I'm sure there are different processes that you can help out with.
Yeah, and just adding in academia the way you can do, and that's a good example. Last summer at Caltech, there was this guy, his name is Edwin Kite. He has some crazy models for formation of mountains on Mars. And I was reading his paper, and his idea was awesome. And I was working a project with Bethany Elman at Caltech. She's also a research scientist at JPL. And we're discussing, and next week, it was really interesting. We're discussing right next week, before the discussion, we would have the Mars conference. It's a large conference that all the Mars crazy people come talk about Mars. And she was like, oh, he's going to be around. We can talk to him. And so we had a meeting, we discussed, and I actually had the idea. I was like, okay, let's bring him. Let's ask him questions. Let's see what we can get out of him. And he was a co-author for our paper, and he offered me a position at U Chicago, like 1 month after I was done with the summer. So in academia, go for the core evaluations. Go ask your neighbor. Go ask professors in other universities. Academia is full of that. As long as you're in the same paper together, it's all good. Polish is fine.
You had a question?
Yeah. So I have 2 questions. One's for you first, Chris. And you were talking about how when you're at your internship, after a while, and you realized, all right, this isn't maybe what I thought it was. I'm not enjoying it. Did you attempt to communicate this with your supervisors and managers? What were your experiences in doing that, and how would you recommend that other people in internships do the same?
So that's a really good question, because I went through like a solid week of like straight up just hating like this decision to go to GE and stuff like that. So I took the advice of like asking the vice president to lunch. So I went to lunch with the site leader of the GE, so sort of the vice president. And, I was like very straightforward with her. I said like I understand like how the importance of like our project and stuff. It's not me. And I told her like how, I also asked like how can I contribute more? Because I feel like I wasn't contributing enough as an intern. And then I also said like this isn't really what I want to do. So just by going to her, like she really appreciated me giving her feedback on like the intern system and stuff like that, and being honest with her about it's not what I wanted to do, and she helped formulate some things that were more like up my alley. So one of the projects I worked on was like it was sort of like a business project. So a lot of engineers don't understand the business side of things. Like, they can design a part, CAD it, and send it to the manufacturing guy. But when it comes to like selling the part or anything like that, the prices or how an engineering company makes money, they have no idea. So what she wanted to do was get me experience and actually learn how an engineering company makes money. And I said, that sounds interesting. I sort of want to know like why GE is such this magnificent company. So she had me basically study the whole input output of the plant. It was like a 150, 200 person plant, and model it in an Excel macros as a live feed of like what's coming in, what's going out, what's in the red, what's in the green. And by doing that, I learned about like how engineering companies make money, and how like the guy who designs a CAD part might make it like 5 times more than it needs to be, and he might actually like destroy the company because he's making the part that's just 10 times more expensive than it needs to be. So I didn't like love doing that, but it was really a lot of good experience for me to know, and I can more appreciate the job of like me as an engineer, and it's really going to help me later in understanding, especially if I want to move up into like project management later in my career. I now understand like how the business actually works in engineering, and I actually ended up really enjoying that, oddly enough. So I would just be very transparent with your manager and say, this isn't what I like. I'll do it, like, obviously, but if there's anything else I can do, please let me know.
Thank you. And for you, Kale, you discussed how, as a freshman right before the summer, you spent a month with, Professor Gamba doing research. And that's where you kind of realized, all right, I don't want to do the aerospace engineering side of research anymore.
Was that just that the research terminated after a month, or did you communicate to him, I'm not sure this is the appropriate project for me, and how did you navigate that?
So that's a good question. It was actually last year. I took 225 a year ago, and I was like, oh, 225 is great. I would stay in Agro for a month. Might as well work with Gumbo for a month. And so it was. He had this idea. The project was really great. It was like a really short period, project. And I would talk to him all the time, and we're working. But at the same time, I was working right across the street, so I had actually a lot of stuff going on. I was working full time with Gumbo, and I would go back home and work in the paper, and it was pretty tough. But I would be much happier working overnights while I was writing stuff about planetary science than what I was doing with him. And so I went to Caltech, and I did planetary science stuff for 4 months, and I was like, oh, that's so much cooler. Look at this picture of Mars. Look at this topographic profile. Look at this slope wind thing. It was great. And then when I came back, I sent an email. The professor, can we talk? I think you helped me, but I want to talk. So I went to his office. We sit down, and I started describing how my summer was. That I was really excited. That I did great things and blah blah. And at the end, I was like, okay, what are you basically telling me is that you don't want to work with me, right? I'm like, yeah. And now he tells everyone that he fired me, which is a lie. And he tells that to his wife, and it was insane. Like, oh, I fired him. Like, no, you didn't. But I just talked to him, and he was completely fine. He had ideas for my project when I came back, like a long-term project. But I was sincere. Like, I don't think I'll be happy, and I don't think I'm gonna be a good aerospace engineer. I think I'm gonna be a much better planetary scientist or something. So it's a fair game. We didn't have anything signed up. We didn't have a final offer or something that would actually be bad. So it was kind of like, okay, when you come back, we sit down and we define what you're gonna do, and then we can discuss salaries, etc. So it was fair. I came back. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't like it. We work right across the street. Yep.
I have another question. This is to everybody. Just about everyone up here, mentioned that they were involved in some sort of student design team or one of the organizations, and for the most part, everyone probably held some sort of leadership position, etc. And during the summertime, a lot of these organizations, that's when they do a lot of testing or R&D, or that's where you're planning for the next year. Did you ever have to, if, for example, or did anyone have a team that competed during the summer and they had to somehow to communicate to their employer, hey, can I take a weekend off or a few days off from work to go and do this? And if not, how did you communicate with your boss to get time off that wasn't traditional?
Okay, so I guess NASA's competition is in the end of June, so it's literally in the middle of the summer. But I kept in touch with them. We kept working. I stayed in Michigan, so it was a little easier to come back to Ann Arbor every once in a while and help out for the builds and test launches and things like that. But yeah, I had to sit down with my boss and be like, hey, I need to go to a rock competition. I need like a week off. And both times with different bosses, they were just like, yeah, go ahead, go do your thing, go launch rockets in the desert and bring me back some videos so I can see. Because like the projects that you're working on are cool things. Everything that goes on in this university is cool. So if you explain that to the person that you're working for, be like, hey, I'm really involved in this. I'm very invested in this team, and I need to go and support them. Most likely, they're going to be like, yeah, go for it, because it's part of your learning, it's part of your educational experience, and having a week off as an intern, they're probably not going to lose too much. So definitely, like, just be straightforward with them. Like, I gotta go, and they'll probably be very willing to let you go.
Yeah. So last summer, I was part of the Centennial Committee, and we had to go to Oshkosh for a week. And academia is funny because there is no such a thing as 9 to 5. There's no such a thing as weekends. There's no such a thing as Fridays. It's more like you do work. We have this deadline. How long you take it is your problem, not mine. So Bethany and I was like, Bethany, I need to leave like a month from now for this 1 week event. And like, yeah, I know you'll be working at night or something. And so it was exactly what happened. Like, everyone come back in the day, everyone's tired, everyone turns off the light, and Kawhi's in the bed. Like, it's just part of it. It's you have to keep it going. Summer is a short period of time, so you have to compress. If you're missing a week, it could be important. Stay focused. Do your stuff. I don't know how industry you can take like pieces of metal and do by yourself without a machine, or if you're doing that, or you can just like sometimes you can, but most of the time it's hard to like assemble stuff. So yes, you'll be losing a week, but it's fine as long as you come back with more power to do more. Yeah,
one quick note about time off. So if you're doing work right, it's going to be stressful, it's going to be hard, and it's going to be challenging. So don't be afraid to ask your boss for time off for personal reasons as well. So my family actually was planning to go out to Yellowstone, which we did this summer during 4th of July. So it was about a week trip. And I asked my boss a couple weeks ahead of time and said, or actually I asked him, so I started June 20th. So I think it was like the week after or 2 weeks after that I was going to go out. So it was like the week that I started, I was like, hey, we got a trip planned to go to Yellowstone. What do you think about that? Can I go? And he's like, absolutely. So Boeing interns do get, I think, like 5 days of standard, paid time off. And in addition, you can probably flex your schedule. I'm sure a lot of big corporations, even small companies, will allow you to maybe work more hours one day. Like let's say you do a 10-hour day, and then the next day you do less. There's a lot of flexibility. Talk to your manager. Always take some time off during the summer too, because if you're working long days, if you're working overtime, there's going to be some times where you just want to relax and enjoy the nice weather and stuff.
That's why you didn't get lunch.
Yeah.
It's actually sort of like reverse psychology. So in one summer, I wanted to go home for 4th of July, and it was also my birthday, and my family, something happened in my family. I just wanted to be home. That happens in life sometimes. So I said, hey boss, can I take off Thursday and Friday? Yeah. Can I take off Thursday and Friday? I'm missing 2 days out of my 5-day week. But then I said, but I'll put in 15 hours a day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, to get close to my 40 still. And he actually, he told me he was more, at the end of the summer, he told me in my review that was one of the things that impressed him most, is that, I was willing that, he knew I had to take time off, and he knew that, and I knew I didn't have to put in like 15-hour work days, because, it was okay. Things happen in life, you can't do that all the time. But my commitment to do that, to still fulfill my 40-hour-ish time commitment during the week, in order to get home, he really appreciated that, and saw my passion around work and stuff like that. So it actually kind of me getting 2 days off and then doing that kind of turned around and be a positive thing. So just think about that too. Any other questions for right now?
Unless you other
player question back here first.
I have a question that you're talking about you don't like the work that you do and what you do. So I just want to ask, at present, I will really like the career that I do. So I'm considering whether I should change it to another. But actually, I don't know much about the other areas. So I'm wondering if I should keep applying for internships in this area, which I'm still in, or just look for something else.
Which major are you in right now?
System control. So I think perhaps in the past that I was considering that touch control would be a little bit interesting because you can model the plan or something like that, design a controller, and in order to get the response more appropriate and more satisfying. Now I think perhaps it is I prefer to do something more practical and rather than I think it is now. Since I'm taking a course 565, I think it is so straightforward because what I do is just change the parameters in order to get the step response more nicer. So I think it is not hard. So I just want to know if I should still apply for the internships in this area or just look for something else.
So my bit of advice is I would still continue to apply for internships. So the reason why I say this is prior to starting or having my internship at Boeing, I despised MATLAB. I hated using MATLAB. I tried to avoid using MATLAB at all costs. I was the guy using calculators when everybody else was programming on MATLAB.
Oh my gosh.
And and a lot of it comes down to how much I got out of the intro to engineering and the computer programming. I probably should have paid more attention in that class. Probably should have absorbed more. But going into Boeing, and one of the first projects was, hey, we've got this giant Excel file with hundreds of columns. Can you turn this into a MATLAB code? I was like, well, sure. I mean, obviously I'm not going to tell them, no, I never used MATLAB. But at that point, I realized that doing something, the same thing that I hated doing at school for some reason, when I started doing it at work, I absolutely loved it. And I do every single thing in MATLAB. I do everything I can in MATLAB. Like even if there are like word problems to answer mixed with like numbers, I'll do it instead of in Word, I'll do it all in MATLAB. I'll let it display, the text all in MATLAB. So it's one of those things. I never thought I would, have that drastic change. But, if I'm sure you picked, systems control at the beginning because you thought it was somewhat interesting, but you might not be finding it interesting right now. I would still consider applying for internships in that area, because if you get one, then you'll get more experience with that, and then you'll really know how it differs from, in the school environment to the actual real life environment. And you may really, really like it in real life. So I would still continue on that path, and also look at the other options that you might have if you're really, really stressed out about continuing.
Apply for both, right?
Yeah.
Or if you can just kind of pick something that's kind of close that you think you might be interested in, that's kind of close to the experience that you already have. So you can kind of get the best of both worlds and see if this is really what you hate and if this other area is something that you like better. Or just if you have an opportunity and you're kind of iffy about it, just kind of go and learn different things and try new things while you're there and make the most of the time that you do have there, even if you're not super satisfied with like the subject matter, I guess.
Yeah, and one thing, if one class is making you reconsider your entire major, maybe it's just that one class the problem, not the major itself. So keep applying, and you can always play a nice card, which is apply for something completely different or something that you think you might also enjoy. And when the recruiter asks you why you're applying for something that's completely different from what you do, you say, oh, I want to try new things. I want to be multidisciplinary. It's something really nice nowadays. Just say multidisciplinary, everything changes. and it's something that you can definitely say, oh, I want to try to understand the big picture and how to approach problems in my area with a different perspective. So you can go both ways. Don't let one class just destroy the major that you thought initially like it. If it's true, well, you might consider changing major, because that would be a pretty miserable life to something they don't like. Yeah. Yep.
Any other questions? We'll be around afterwards to take more personal questions too, but
One last just general question, and it can go two ways. One is, while you guys were applying for either research or a job, internship, whatever, a lot of times some companies take applications and submit offers in the fall, and others submit them in January, and some of them submit them in May. And the other side is when you completed your internship maybe, or your research, the professor sat down, did a review, and said, oh, we'd like to have you come again next year. And a lot of us being young in our undergraduate career, sometimes we want to, even if we had a great time, we might want to try something else. How did you communicate? Obviously you don't want to burn bridges. How do you communicate that you might want to look towards something else? And did you ever have experiences where maybe that backfired on you? And what type of advice did you give?
So I had an absolutely phenomenal manager. Like, he was supportive of anything that I wanted to do, So during my time at Boeing, I think I talked to 20 different people, several different managers and a couple of executives to figure out what part of the company do I really, really like. So I ended up putting a top 5 list of where I wanted to work. And the current group that I was working in was closer to 3rd or 4th on that list. It wasn't my top 2 choices. But my manager was completely fine with it. He completely supported it, because the thing is, at these big companies, you're not going to stay in one place forever. Like my manager now, he was at environmental control systems for all the aircraft except the 787. Now he's doing the same thing with brand new 777X. So he's not even going to be my manager next summer. It's going to be another gentleman in the same group. So it's, be very straightforward with your boss. Don't hesitate, because if you didn't like what you did and then you get a return offer and then you kind of say, well, okay, I'll come back to the same thing, then they're going to think, okay, you want to do the same thing. That's great. We'll bring you back. Be straight up, and if they're not willing to help you, talk to the next up. See if they can help you. There are so many people in that chain of command, and try to find somebody that will help you. And I guarantee you somebody will want to help you.
Yeah, so after my sophomore year, I actually was able to continue working for ICF part-time throughout the school year. And the following January, I took the internship with United in San Francisco, and I went to my boss and I told him like, hey, like I really enjoy working for ICF. I feel like I want to try something new, expand a skill set, and he was totally fine with it. And in fact, like I'd be really surprised if, especially at your age, if you go to your boss and they bash you out for wanting to try something new. Like it's almost a professional courtesy. You have to let them try new things, and especially like in my type of work, like the turnover is pretty high. Like most people in consulting, they get out of undergrad, work there for 3 years, and go get an MBA. That's a typical pathway. But actually, I got back from the internship at United, and then went back to my bosses, and they wanted to rehire me. They're like, yeah, we knew you wouldn't enjoy it at the airline, but you actually learned more that you can apply to the current job, because the job at ICF also involved kind of maintenance analysis. So that case actually helped them probably more than helped me, but yeah, you should, if you've come across someone who's gonna fault you for trying new things, like you probably don't want to work for that person anyway.
I think mine was that I was tunnel vision, like engineering. Like I want to do engineering, and Forcia doesn't have a ton of engineers, just because a lot of what they do is just manufacturing. They're a business. That's pretty much what they do. Their engineers kind of post-process the way that they're building things, and not actually designing the parts themselves. So they didn't really have an area for me to go. So when I said I wanted to do something else, they're like, okay, well, you can stay here and do PCNL, or you can go do purchasing, because we don't have engineering. So it was kind of like I didn't get what I wanted, but I got something else. So I still got a new experience, but it was like halfway there. So like, I mean, as long as you just express what you're feeling, what you want to do, like they're gonna try to cater to you, and if the opportunity is not there, then it's not there. But if it is, they'll definitely give it to you.
Well, in academia in general, professors, they work in several projects. If you're not dealing with a theoretical physicist or physics people, professors tend to do multiple projects, and they have this mindset, which is I want to work in multiple things, and they're completely fine with you saying, I don't want to do Mars this summer, I'm going to do Europa next year, and that's my case. And if that's what he said, if your professor, if your advisor, your postdoc, whatever, doesn't want you to change, well, that's not a good sign. You should probably not work for him or with him. And it's just something to keep in mind. You are an undergrad, and you have the excuse to try different things, and you should. If you spend one summer at Caltech, the next summer, go somewhere else. Don't do like me that went to JPR. But yeah, but go somewhere else. Be somewhere else. Talk to different people. Get different networking. It's after you either gonna get to work or you're gonna go to grad school. People will start asking you to be expert in one specific area. Even though we're gonna rotate, you're gonna get different projects. You're gonna need to know more some areas than other areas. So use this undergrad to get the most out of it, to learn as much as possible, and experience different things. And then when you go to grad school, when you go to real life, you or industry or such, you'll be able to focus on something that you actually love, and you're 100% sure that that's the thing.
All right. If there's any more questions from the audience for general? Okay. So we'll stay around afterwards, obviously, for more personal questions, but I just want to thank the panel for tonight. All right, like I said, we'll be around. Make sure you sign in the back. And yeah, thanks again for coming out. This is being recorded, right? Cool. Because I had I had this video.
Yeah.
Because you're like searching on the forum.
Sending me emails in the middle of the panel.
I'm sorry, I got to be multitasking. I felt that. I'm like, you got your
Same
laptop.
day.
You got
Come back Saturday.
what?
Come back Saturday.
So you're
Leaving Saturday, coming back Saturday.
Okay. If I could, I'll and I can, if you guys need another car, I got a car too. Yeah, I think it's just so confused.
Oh, did you start it?
Yeah. So the internship you got, like, you find it kind of your life.
So I applied. I think it's like a year ago. So I applied like 90. Good.
I have too many thoughts.
That grew up.
It's almost better than I did.
Like, did you know that they were all
I don't know. One day, I was just watching video on my iPad. So I called the company. First company I called that's the one. The big so that's something I applied for. I was like, station. They called me. I was like, oh, great. I didn't expect Boeing. 30 minutes later, I got a call. And I checked the voicemails, and it was Boeing. I literally was going to it like any job. So I was actually born blind. I was actually 6 years. So in your school, we had 10 years. So I actually live in South. 70 miles south of Memphis. So I mean, that's like. You grow up, you what it says, I don't have. You were trying. Like